everyone, this is John Daly. I'm here with Bernie Goldberg again for another episode of the No BS Zone. How's it going today, Bernie?
So far, so good, John.
Excellent. So today we'll be talking about a few different topics. The first one is President Biden. His approval rating is terrible. His party's favorability isn't so hot either. Inflation's not getting better. So he has been doing a lot of voter pandering in recent months in some areas where he is hoping to gain a foothold. You wanted to talk about that a bit.
Well, he's not the only politician who gives the voters what he thinks they want right before an election. So Joe Biden doesn't have a monopoly on that, but he's giving pandering a bad name. I mean, there's the student loan forgiveness program, which may not even be legal. And it's really a student loan transference program, transferring the debt that this guy owes and make that guy pay it off. That's a blatant, transparent attempt to win over the youth vote. Okay. Then he's got taking fuel from the petroleum reserve that's meant for national emergencies, emergencies like war, not like trying to hold on to the House during a midterm election, not that emergency. That's obviously anybody who drives a car to work, he's trying to win them over. Then the third one is abortion rights, which he says will be the first thing he does if he has control of the House and the Senate. A transparent move to get pro-abortion rights people on his side. As I say, John, politicians pander, but he's giving pandering a bad name. He's making it so obvious, and it's because he can't do anything about other things like the border and crime, which we'll get to, I think, maybe in our next segment. So he's pandering to voters, and I don't think it's going to work.
No, and I think you mentioned the strategic oil supply. There's also that story about him talking to Saudi Arabia, trying to get them to hold off their slated decrease in oil production until next month, until after the midterms. So yeah, he's really sort of floundering, and it's I think I think what he's trying to do and failing at was what Obama used to do and was really quite good at. Even Trump was good at that too, but really changing the subject to something else and hoping that these the biggest problems people aren't really paying attention to. And he's just not good at it. I mean, the others had that charisma. They had a pretty loyal following. Biden doesn't have that same cult-like appeal that some of these other politicians have had, and I just don't think it's working for him.
No, you're absolutely right about that. Besides that, I'm not at all sure that the student loan forgiveness program is a good political move. I'm not sure that I would think there are more people who say, I paid off my loan. Now I have to pay off somebody else's loan, or I never took out a loan. I'm driving a truck for a living and I have to pay for somebody who studied French literature in college. I have to pay for their loan. So I don't know that it's a good political move. People blame the Biden administration and Joe Biden himself for the energy situation. First day in office, he cut off the XL pipeline. He made very clear he was against drilling for oil. So going into the strategic reserve to drop prices, which may not even drop because oil is a much bigger issue than taking 1 million barrels out of the reserve on any given day. I don't even know if that's going to work. And abortion rights, anybody who's for abortion rights, we're going to vote Democratic to begin with. So he may not be good as a messenger, but I'm not sure he's good as a political thinker either.
No, I agree. So, speaking of Biden's relationship with voters, the president said a little over a week ago that the U.S. economy is strong as hell, and the White House followed up saying that Biden has done the work to fix the inflation issue. We've heard some other comments about how the border is now secure. I believe Kamala Harris said that. But yet, with all this, inflation remains at a 40-year high. The economists are saying that we're very likely headed into a recession. Additionally, crime is up. That's another issue. The border, but and like you said, Biden's got now he's ready to move on to abortion. I guess the rest of the stuff is is not such a problem. But I think it's pretty clear that most Americans don't see things as rosy as he sees them. What would you say?
Well, I think he's counting on the stupidity of the American voter. I mean, I don't think it's any more complicated than that. On the economy, you just mentioned it, but let me repeat. On the economy, he said it's strong as hell. This is while inflation is going through the roof. On crime, Peter Ducey of Fox News asked him, going into the midterms, do you think crime's an important issue? And he said, yes, I think it's an important issue, and we're doing great on it, or words to that effect. This is while crime is surging in cities across America, cities almost all of which are run by Democratic mayors and establishments. The border, Kamala Harris says it's secure. Over 2 million, almost 3 million illegal immigrants entered the United States last year, according to the US government, not according to me.
Right.
So you have to count on the stupidity of the American voter, but that may be a tad crass. So let me quote H.L. Mencken, the old Baltimore journalist who was kind of cynical, kind of curmudgeon-y and all that. And there's a quote attributed to him, which is, "You'll never go broke underestimating the intelligence of the American people." That sounds like the Biden game plan. That sounds like the Biden game plan for the midterms. I'm writing a column about this that'll be up on Monday, so there'll be more of this coming in a few days.
Yeah, it's a tough. It is really it's really strange to watch. We had the Inflation Reduction Act. That it's funny listening to the Democrats. They're very proud of themselves for getting this passed. They're saying it's great, but it's not showing any results. And neither. And when different Democratic politicians talk about, when they're asked about, well, how is this supposed to bring down inflation, and none of them really seem to have a great answer. I think just because it was called the Inflation Reduction Act, a lot of them figured, well, that would be good enough. People would hear that. They know we're working on it. But no, I mean, this has been going on for some time. Americans are running out of patience, and I think that no amount of sweet talk, especially when you're not that good at it, the way as is the case with Biden, just not going to get it done.
These are problems brought on by Biden himself. On the border, what did he do on the border? He reversed Trump's policies. What did he do on energy? He reversed Trump's policies, as if reversing Trump's policies is a policy in and of itself. On crime, all he has to do is say, but he won't do it because he's afraid of the progressive wing of his party. All he has to do is say, like you, American people, I've had it with progressive district attorneys that think criminals are the victims. I've had it with no cash bail laws. I've had enough of this. You know what? That would be a smart thing to say about crime. But he's more afraid of the progressive wing of his party than he is of the electorate. Okay, he made a decision, and that decision is going to come back to bite him in the rear end on November 8th. To what degree? I'm not at all sure. Whether it's going to be a red wave, a tsunami, or a typical victory, I don't know. But his decisions he's going to pay a price for them in less than 2 weeks.
Right. And speaking of the midterms, let's move over to the GOP side. So things have been looking better for Republicans for many of the reasons we discussed, all these problems, and they don't seem to be getting better. The Democrats are the party in power, and because the inflation issue, especially, isn't getting better, Republicans are benefiting, and now we're seeing some momentum building even behind some of these what's been called ultra MAGA Senate candidates we've been talking about, Walker, Oz, J.D. Vance, Blake Masters. The polls still show them underperforming other Republicans in their states by quite a bit in some cases. But a lot of the polling is now showing them polling pretty even, or at least within the margin of error with their Democratic opponents. In most of these cases, what I'm curious, what do you think this means if a number of these politicians I just named off, these Republican nominees that have been sort of problem candidates, what do you think it means if most or all of them end up winning? What do you think that means for a potential presidential run for Donald Trump in 2024?
Well, the states you mentioned, Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, all the Republicans are Trump endorsed Republicans. I'm not going to make predictions on who's going to win any races. We'll see. We don't have to make predictions. We'll know soon enough. But if Trump endorsed candidates win all of those races, or even 3 out of 4 of those races, Donald Trump will flex his muscles and say, you see, I have a lot of clout in this party. And that'll go a long way if he decides to run, or more importantly, I think, or just as importantly, even if he doesn't run, the influence he'll have on a Republican Speaker of the House to say, you have to do things that my people want to do, because I can hurt you if you don't. For instance, if the crazy wing of the Republican Party wants to impeach Joe Biden, well, whatever Donald Trump says about that's going to go a long way. It's going to make Kevin McCarthy or whoever the speaker is, it's going to make that person's life miserable. Now, let's say he loses all 4 races or 3 of the 4. You would think that lessens Donald Trump's power. Maybe. But Donald Trump isn't going to take responsibility for the losses. He's not going to say, you know what, if I had endorsed other candidates, they would have done better. I endorsed bad candidates. What was I thinking when I endorsed Herschel Walker? My bad. You're never in a million years going to hear Donald Trump say, my bad, I was wrong.
I think that's right. Yeah.
So everything I just said about whether he's going to run or not, and whether he's going to try to make the congressional leaders do what he wants them to, that's not going to change. If he wants to put pressure on the House Speaker, he's going to do it, whether Vance and Walker and Blake in Arizona and Mehmet Oz in Pennsylvania, whether they win or lose, Donald Trump is going to still be a force, I would say a toxic force in the Republican Party going forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that I was going to say, I don't think it matters either way how his Senate candidates do. If they win,
Right.
like you said, Trump will claim credit. If they lose, I wouldn't be surprised if he says the election was rigged. In some of those cases,
Wait,
and
hold on. You're saying, let me make sure I understand this. You're alleging that Donald Trump might say an election is rigged, was stolen from his people?
I'm going out on a limb, and I am suggesting that. Yeah. No, that's what's so remarkable about this, because Trump is in this great position, political position, where no one I shouldn't say no one in the party, but most of the people in the party never blame him for any of the losses he gives them. So, it's anything that was lost under him, it was because of the corrupt system. And they never blame him. And so, and I think because of that,
I got to tell you, John, I envy that.
I know, exactly.
Imagine screwing up as royally as he did, losing the House, losing the presidency, then losing the Senate. And people don't blame you for any of it. I wish all the screw-ups I've made in my life, nobody blamed me for it.
Right,
That's
right.
great.
No, that's fantastic. There's this off there, and I'm gonna butcher this line. There's this line in The Office from the Michael Scott character where he says, what he's really interested in is receiving all the credit, but none of the accountability if things go wrong. He comes out, lays that out, and that's where
Who,
Trump is.
who among us doesn't wish that?
Oh, exactly. And I'll even go a bit farther there because I believe that Trump would actually benefit even more politically if the GOP lost the Senate again, because I think that is if he plans to run in 2024. Because if Republicans have less power in Washington as he's running, that way he builds a better case for Republicans needing him. Once again, is this Hail Mary throw to save the world. So I think in actually a weaker GOP in 2024, it actually plays better for him.
Before we move on, if you're willing to answer this, do you think he's going to run in 2024?
I don't know. I thought a few months ago he was, and I don't know if there's all these legal issues he has going on within Georgia and the FBI over the classified documents he take. I don't know if it makes actually more sense for him being in this much, possible trouble, if it actually makes it more likely for him to run or not. But I don't know. I thought for sure he was, and now I'm not quite as sure. I think he probably still will, but I honestly don't know. It's
Yeah,
tough.
I don't know either. I'm going to steal a line from my former CBS News colleague, Peggy Noonan, who wrote speeches for Ronald Reagan and writes for the Wall Street Journal now. She delivered the keynote address to the Al Smith Dinner, which is a Catholic organization that raises money for charity. And you're supposed to take shots at both sides good naturedly. And she said, I got a call from Ted Cruz, and he asked, if I run for president, what should I do? And she said, Ted, just be yourself. And then she added, that was mean. So I'm stealing that line and saying Donald Trump really did call me and asked if he should run for president. What I thought about that was like in 2011 or 12 when he didn't run. And the line I'm going to use going forward, stealing from my friend Peggy Noonan, is I said, Donald, I don't give advice to people who are going to run for president. But if I did, I'd say, just be yourself. And he was himself, and I'm responsible for everything that happened after that.
See, what you should have done back then was say, no, that would be just the worst idea ever. And then you could have prevented all this, Bernie. But you did. Oh, well.
I know. Don't
I don't think
remind
I
me.
don't think he would have necessarily
The
listened to
only
you.
thing is, you wouldn't have listened anyway. So
Yeah.
I did
Well,
say to him, while I don't give advice, if you've done anything you don't want made public, it's going to be made public. But I was referring to whether he scratched his rear end in public or not. And I think I even said that. I think I said, if you've ever scratched your rear end in public or picked your nose in public, it's going to come out. Well, little did I know what else is coming out.
Yeah, in the end, it didn't ultimately matter, did it? Whether it's the Stormy Daniels stuff or the Access Hollywood, he got past
I
it.
had no idea, and it wouldn't have mattered if I did.
Yeah. So just a little footnote on the Senate deal. We've been talking a lot about the the Senate candidates that Trump endorsed, and they've been sort of a drag on in some areas. My Republican nominee here in Colorado, who's running for Senate, Joe O'Dea, Trump is actually actively going after him right now. So O'Dea. He is an underdog. He's a bit of a long shot, although he's outperforming what a lot of people thought it was going to be the case against Michael Bennet here in Colorado. But because he's also come out and said that Trump lost the election, he hopes Trump doesn't run again in 2024. Trump is sort of targeting him now, saying, implying that Republicans in Colorado shouldn't support this guy, which is really great. If the GOP, is hoping to get back and if them with the majority in the Senate.
There's a rule of thumb that you'll never go wrong on. Donald Trump cares about Donald Trump first and foremost. So if you badmouth him, you're the bad guy. And if that means is it Michael Bennet?
Michael Bennet.
If Michael Bennet, the Democrat incumbent, wins re-election, Donald Trump doesn't care. He doesn't care at all.
Right.
The Republican said that he hopes Donald Trump doesn't run again, that Donald Trump lost the election. He's the target. That's it. It's as simple as that. You will never go wrong betting on this. Donald Trump will always make decisions based on what's best for Donald Trump, not what's best for the Republican Party, and not what's best for the people who are his most loyal supporters. He will throw them under the bus in a New York minute if it suits his purpose. But I don't want I've talked too much about Donald Trump today. I don't want to do that. I don't want to bash him. To the extent that we talked about him, it's only to point out how much harm he's done to the Republican Party. That's it. Let's move on.
Sounds good. So our last topic is actually Hunter Biden. He's actually a favorite topic on the political right and has been for some time. So federal agents believe now, after a 4-year investigation, that there may be enough evidence to charge the president's son with tax crimes and also lying on a government form about when he was applying for a gun. The lie had to do with his drug addiction issues at the time. It'll be up to a U.S. attorney in Delaware to decide whether or not to actually press charges. Now, just to be clear for some of the people watching this who may be confused, this has nothing to do with Hunter Biden's laptop or the allegedly, shady foreign business dealings that some on the right have speculated that Joe Biden himself was involved with. But going back to the actual issue here right now that's being looked at, what do you see happening here, Bernie? What are the chances, do you think, that Hunter will be charged with these crimes for the tax and the gun stuff?
This is the no BS zone, so I'm not going to give you any BS. I could try to answer that question, but Hunter Biden, and I know I'm an outlier on the right, bear with me. This story doesn't interest me. If he's charged, if he broke the tax laws and he's charged, great. If he didn't fill out the gun application accurately and they charge him, good, I don't care. The only thing, the fact that he used his father's name to get $1 million deals in areas he had absolutely no expertise in, is that smarmy? Yes, but I don't care because there were a lot of people, a lot of people use their father's name. People who go to Yale because their father went to Yale. Their mother went to some other school and they apply as a legacy to people use their parents' name all the time. If Hunter Biden used Joe Biden's name to get stuff, I don't like it, but I understand it. The only thing that interests me about this story is whether Joe Biden is somehow involved. If he's involved in taking money and not reporting it, that interests me. If he's involved, and there's a big if in these things, and let me emphasize that. If he's involved in speaking to a political leader in some foreign country and says, hey, my son can use some help, and then as president has to deal with that political leader of a foreign country, yeah, I want to know about that. But Hunter Biden is a unfortunate human being who's had a lot of problems in his life. Tax evasion and the gun application may be two of the smaller ones. Whatever happens, happens. I barely follow the Hunter Biden story, except for how it might affect his father, the president of the United States. That makes sense?
It absolutely does. Yeah, and I think I do think we're going to hear a lot more about Hunter Biden when the Republicans take the House. I think there's going to be congressional investigations, looking at it regarding him, regarding his father. I think we're going to be hearing. I think he's, I'm always surprised. I shouldn't say surprised, but I hear so much about Hunter Biden from the Republicans, who's in, but we're going to hear a lot more. I think it's going to be a big deal after January of next year.
I just don't know how many people outside of the Fox viewing audience cares about Hunter Biden. I literally don't know. I'm not saying they don't. I didn't
No,
know.
I think a lot of people on the right are overestimating how interested people are. I mean, it's really this really is something they're interested in very much. But outside of that, I've heard a lot of people suggest, and there's been some polling, I guess some poll suggested as well, that if more of the voters before the 2020 election knew about the laptop thing being real and not Russian disinformation, that might have made a difference in the election outcome. I just don't buy it. I don't think Hunter Biden, anything associated with him, would have changed anybody's mind in how they voted.
Well, I've heard the same thing, and there's a poll out that some 20% of people or whatever it is didn't even know about it, and it would have affected their vote. Look, from a media point of view, the media failed miserably on the Hunter Biden story, miserably.
Yep.
They didn't, and you know what? They didn't want the story out because they can say all they want that they thought it was Russian disinformation. They didn't want it out because they thought it would hurt Joe Biden. That's what it comes down to. If there was a laptop of Donald Trump's son, one of his children, and it looked like it would hurt Donald Trump, that would have been all over the place. I've stopped losing sleep over media bias. It's well beyond media bias. It's just a corrupt system. And they don't care. They don't care. They don't care what you think. And by you, I mean you, John Daly, and you, everybody listening. They don't care what you think. It's their ball, and they're going to play with it any way they want. And they'll continue to lose audience. They'll continue to lose credibility, and they don't care.
No, that's well. On that cheery note, that's probably a good place to wrap things up. So yeah, I want to thank everybody for joining us again.
Can
We
I
always
make a
I
pitch?
always enjoy doing
Can,
this.
can I make a pitch to the?
Yep.
I stay out of the business end of this, such as it is. There is barely a business end to this, but it's coming up on holiday time. You can give, what is it? Give subscriptions, John?
Yeah, if you go to bernardgoldberg.com, you can give a gift subscription to, whether it's monthly or annually to a friend or family member, and they can
Give it to
contribute
somebody
to your
who
gift.
give it to somebody who agrees with you, or give it to somebody who disagrees with you, just to make their life, just to annoy them. But
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that sort of a revenge tactic. No, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. So yeah, we'll put some footer notes about the gift subscriptions and this in the show notes for this for the today's video, and also in the Q&A and other columns. So you'll be able to use it to find it pretty easily. So and also always to those watching this, please leave your comments in the comment section. Pitch us ideas to talk about. We always appreciate that. Anything else you want to say today, Bernie?
that's about it. I've said my piece.
Excellent, excellent. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us. Bernie, you have a great day.
You too, John.